Hi, this is Robin Cooper with Equip 222, and I will talk with you about the red flags of struggle today. There are so many signs that students are struggling or are experiencing something in a different way. Signs of learning differences can be expressed at any age level, and some things can be seen externally, and some things may be hidden for a while. So what I will not do is attempt to identify underlying conditions. I'm not qualified to do that, nor are the leaders of Equip. What I'm about to share with you is not an exhaustive list, but what I am attempting to do is help you identify red flags so as parents, you can do your own investigations at home. Think about this. Not all struggles are problems. Neurodivergence or learning differences are often strengths, and they serve as clues for God's purpose for our lives. God has fashioned each of us in His image, and I have my own story about my own child with neurodivergence that I could share. His differences are both a challenge, but also a beautiful asset to his own development and character to the world. I will suggest that when a child is healthy, he or she wants to do his best or her best. But when a child loses confidence or stops giving their best, it is probably because their confidence or hope for improvement has been damaged or broken in some areas, or maybe they believe the task in front of them is unachievable. So what I don't want you to do is blame the child. I want you to look at how we're nurturing them from all aspects and areas. Maybe the task should be broken down more. Maybe we need to scale the project. We will try to carefully discern laziness of will or laziness of intellect separate from the need for more discrete or even creative instruction. So that said, here are some signals that will help you notice some of the red flags for differences. I will cover physical signals and then also internal signs. Physical signals fall under, I'll say, 6 broad categories. The first is facial expressions. If you see the brows wrinkling, the person just looking distressed or stressed, if you have downward turned lips, right? If they have a clenched mouth, you know what I'm talking about. You can watch their facial expressions. You can watch the eyes. If you have a child blinking a lot, if their eyes are darting off a lot, if they're stretching their eyes, if they're rolling their eyes, this is a sign that something is happening in the brain. The other thing you might see is that their shoulders are tense, or they're rubbing their necks like this, or they even could be becoming pale. You can notice things in the face with so many different signals from the children. The second physical sign are fidgety hands or fidgety feet. I think we've all probably seen this, but if you see children wringing their hands, tearing up paper, tugging on their clothes, even biting their shirt collars or something, putting things in their mouths, or if they have constant leg movement, it's just fidgety feet, they can't seem to sit still, that's another physical sign, could be, of a neurodivergence or a difference. The third physical sign you'll look for is body rhythms. If there's all of a sudden a change in body rhythm, they're not eating the same amount of food, they're not eating on the same time schedule, they're using the toilet too frequently or not often enough. If they're unable to stand still, if their body rhythms have a sudden change, this might be a clue for you of a big red flag. The fourth physical sign are just ailments, like when the child complains of tummy aches a lot, if they're having headaches, if they're just not feeling good. If this happens suddenly, it could be that there is something happening in the gut or in the body. There could be a physical reason for that problem, but it also could be a sign of discomfort, even in extreme cases, could be a sign of abuse, could be a sign of a big change in schedule. So you're gonna look at the ailments of the children well and pay attention to that. The fifth sign, physical sign, you can see are gross motor skills. Children can suffer from vestibular imbalance, bilateral disconnection, that's like the left-right connection, neural input integration. They could fall a lot, they could become clumsy, they could trip more often than maybe what you see in their peers. They could miss contact with a ball or miss contact with a sport goal more often than usual. And I will say this, that when children go through growth spurts, they do get clumsier because they're getting used to their bodies being a different size or bodies becoming a different proportion. And we all go through those stages. We have hormonal changes we go through. But ongoing clumsiness can come from neural sensory issues, and that can impact your gross and fine motor skills. And the last thing I'll talk about is actually fine motor skills. For a child that really dislikes writing an excessive amount, really dislikes drawing, loses energy, loses interest as soon as they start writing or having to use fine motor skills, this could be a clue for you that there is a difference for the child. And there is a struggle for a child. It could be one of those red flags you want to look for. I'm going to shift gears and talk about internal hardships. Children can have trouble with, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 big buckets that are sort of internal that you may not be able to see on the outside right away. The first one is ideation. Children can actually have trouble forming ideas and even writing thoughts down in a logical sequence. They secondly could have problems with math that can include telling time or estimating that passing of time. That's pretty common in children, actually. Number 3, children can have a poor memory. And if they have a poor memory, they will have trouble following multi-step directions. You've got to break them down. They will have trouble repeating what you say. You've got to shorten your phrasing. Fourthly, children can have problems paying attention, staying focused, staying quiet. They can lose their focus midway in their step of even just one single answer. This often is not something that, it's not necessarily something that they can help. Okay, 5th, children can be impulsive. I think probably we've all seen children that struggle with impulsiveness, including my own. That means they can act without really thinking about possible outcomes. And there's like a fine line between you discerning whether something is willful disobedience or truly like a handicap in impulsive behavior. In the beginning, the ability to pre-plan or pre-think something out. Children can have sensory integration issues, and that means when there's extra noise or movement around, they can be sensory overloaded. The brain kind of shuts down. They could also be sensory seekers. They can seek sensory input. One of my children, when he was 4 or 5, would slam his body against the wall, actually. Children may hit more often. They might even do like self-stimulation movements, or they may need to fidget with something to calm their hands down. They may need to move their feet in order to concentrate. So if you see those behaviors, those like physical signs, it could be a sensory diet need. Okay, the next item that is more internal is trouble with organization. If you see this, your child will have trouble putting their room back together, will have trouble remembering to put things away, will have trouble just coordinating projects and planning projects. Another internal sign of a red flag of maybe like being disoriented or a learning difference could be problems hearing you. Children may not hear you, or they may hear you but not process what you say. And this looks like disobedience, but for some children, they're not able to process what they're hearing, or may not be able to hear you. This changes with how much background noise there is for them. Okay, there's another internal sign of learning differences, and that comes with language. It's both the expression. I already talked about the receptive language, but the expression of language. So children can have problems reading or writing. They can have difficulty saying a word correctly out loud or expressing their thoughts. They might speak like a younger child, using short or simple phrasing or leaving out words in sentences. They may have problems understanding words or concepts. They might have struggles understanding grammar. They might say words out loud while they're writing. So if you see your child or another child speaking words out loud while they're writing, it may be it might be how they're trained, but it also might be a red flag of something that they need help with or something that they struggle with. There's another sign of expressive language, which is leaving words unfinished or omitting them when they're writing sentences. So the brain is just skipping over that word and is not tracking it. Okay, I'm going to switch gears and talk about a different internal hardship, and that is inflexibility. Children with inflexibility have problems dealing with changes in schedules or situation. So if they expect one thing to happen, they will have a very hard time shifting and may have a tantrum or an outburst. Or if you are asking the child to transition from one activity to the next and they have that hardship, it could be because they have just a less flexible personality. Another thing that leads me to is just this thought of emotions. So when you see children quickly getting angry or being irritable, when they are out of control during outbursts, when they are feeling tense or insecure, when they are constantly worrying or having negative thoughts or feeling anxious, and if they're always crying or often being clingy, it could be another internal sign of a hardship. So I went through these red flags of struggle, not to say that these things are bad or inappropriate or etc. I actually went through these red flags of struggle so you could see this in children, and when you see behaviors in children, it might help you decode what is underlying. So you need to just use that careful discernment of will versus disobedience, ability versus maybe even a handicap, and help the children from that regard. This will help you when you're thinking you might see a problem with a child, and even when you're thinking about needing a parent meeting.